Hi, this is Margaret Byrd and welcome to Color Quest. What an amazing month we have had looking at different types of natural dye kits here on Color Quest. Last week we looked at a clay resist printing method of being able to make designs on textile using an indigo vat. Today, we're going to continue that indigo theme and look at how we can create prints using indigo paste in a block printing technique. So let's jump right in, grab that indigo, and see what kind of beautiful designs we can make today on textile. So far we've looked at the natural dye kit and the indigo vat kit, as well as the clay resist kit. So today we're going to be looking at the Indigo Block Printing Kit. Now I'm really excited. I've been excited for all of these, but it's fun to imagine us using indigo to create prints, which we've only now looked at with the clay resist. So this is kind of a cool alternative way to create prints. Let's open up the kit and work from there. All right, so as with Julie's other kits, she's got a set of instructions, which again is gonna really help us be able to walk through this. This time only on one side. Don't know if that means it's going to be easier. We'll see. Remains to be seen. So far, everything's been actually really incredibly easy to understand and follow because the instructions have been so good. All right, then we've got our indigo. And this is the indigo that we're going to be using to make a block printing paste. So it's not quite as much as we've had in our other packs, but it's going to allow us to print with the indigo. But in order to print, we're going to have to make a paste. And the sodium alginate is what we're going to be using for that. So the combination of these two things will produce this really awesome paste. Now, as you've learned in the past videos, we're also going to have to go through the process of introducing it to an alkaline environment as well as an oxidation environment, which means we're going to have to be using some of the other things that we've used in the previous videos. One is the lime, and that is the material that provides the alkaline environment, as well as the fructose, which is the reduction element that allows the final step to create a sort of fermentation that allows it to oxidize and be able to grab that blue indigo color that is not water soluble and create blue. And there are two other pieces that are included in this kit. One is salt, which is going to be mixed with the calx. The salt and the calx are going to work together to provide that alkaline fixative that's required for the indigo. And finally, she's included a tiny bit of soda ash. It looks like it's going to be used at the very end to turn our textile back to white if in fact it yellows during the process. So we'll see how that works. I thought it would be great for me to show you what is not included and what you're going to also need for this particular process. So in order for us to make the paste, you're going to need some kind of a cup. I happen to just have a mixing cup. It doesn't have to be. But you're just going to want to make sure that it's got enough room for you to mix up the indigo. And that's going to be at least, I would go for 8 to 16 fluid ounces so that you have enough to move and create the paste. You're also going to need some kind of a stir stick to do that. Same thing. You will, of course, need your fiber. And today I'm going to work on that same shape I have been using. This is a piece of cotton. It has been pre-washed, which is super important. And although you don't need a mordant, these happen to be mordant because I keep a stash of pre-mordant cotton pieces with alum acetate, but you don't need to have mordant factory. You'll just have to supply your own fabric, but don't worry about the mordant itself. You're also going to need some kind of a whisk or hand blender in order to mix up the various dry materials into the pastes. You are going to want to have distilled water for this particular project. And you're going to need some kind of a vessel to be able to submerge your textile into the various baths that it's going to need in order to adhere and reduce and all of that. So I just happen to have a large mason jar, but it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be a plastic bucket or a bin or anything, but just something that you can submerge your textile in. And it needs to be a minimum of 2 liters just to be able to accommodate for that process. And then, of course, you are going to need something to print. Now, you can use anything. I just happen to have purchased these geometric wooden stamps. They are from India. They are handcrafted. I just loved them and thought that they would make really pretty prints. Of course, you can cut your own block prints if you want, or you can use lino to do the same. That's a great option if you know how to do it or you have the tools to do it. I thought this was easier because these are just already made, and I love simple geometric shapes in these designs. You will also need some kind of a flat surface in order to put the paste on so that you can be inking up your wood block or lino block, whatever you decide to do. And then Julie recommends something like one of these inexpensive sponge brushes because the paste will be pretty sticky. And so I'll be using this brush in order to put it down on a nice even surface like this. Now, the place where I purchased these also recommended using something that has some give to it. This is just a piece of foam that was in a package that came, and I noticed that they recommended this. So I'm probably going to be putting the indigo paste onto this, and the reason for that is that it gives you some cushion, as you might imagine, like a stamp pad, in order to get your ink over the design and the raised element of your block print. If you don't have something like this, I don't think it's a big deal, but since the place where I purchased these recommended that, I thought, why not? And that is what you're going to need in order to work with this kit. So I'm excited. Let's get this going, see what beautiful things we can make. So as with the other kits, the instructions begin with a little bit of information about indigo printing in general, and also she goes into a discussion about the thickener that we are going to be using. It is a thickener that is made from seaweed, so I love that. It's the sodium alginate to create an environment for the indigo to live in a paste form. Then she begins with the instructions of how to make the printing paste, how to fix the printing paste, and then how to reduce the printing paste, which we've stepped through with the indigo vat. So you should be familiar with that, but we'll go through step by step and start with the process of making the printing paste. We're going to mix 100 milliliters of almost boiling distilled water with the entire contents of the indigo. So I'm looking for 100 milliliters, just not a lot of water. I'll add a little extra just for the heating process. And we'll get that heated up to almost boiling. So we're going to mix in the whole packet of indigo now. And just as a safety measure, this is powder. So you will want to be wearing a mask so that you're not ingesting the indigo, purely for safety purposes. Just, it's good healthy practice to be protecting yourself from ingesting foreign things. Even though indigo is natural, we just want to be safe. So now we'll be stirring this in for 1 to 2 minutes, trying to get as mixed in as possible. And there's that beautiful indigo smell. Welcome to the farm, the barn, and that really earthy odor of indigo. We're going to add the contents of the sodium alginate packet and blend it with a hand blender or a whisk until you have a smooth paste. And I'm going to work with this small hand whisk. Of course, you can use a blender if you've got one set up for natural dyeing or craft projects. All right, mix in the sodium alginate. We'll add that in to the indigo. Do a quick stir first with my stir stick, and then I'm going to move to my whisk to try to mix it in really well. I may have to go back and forth between the two to make sure that I get all the bits of the sodium alginate. And this is going to thicken up as it binds and creates our printing paste. The smell now has added in a little bit of sea, because the sodium alginate is made from seaweed. So I can really smell the sea now. So it's like land and sea all blending into one beautiful natural paste. Really strong smell, but one purely of nature. It's looking pretty good, pretty thick. So I can see that if you wanted to do something that was a little bit more silk screen oriented, you might need to thin it out, but I'm going to keep it this nice thick consistency for the block printing. So now I'm going to make my printing plate, and I am just going to use a ceramic plate and then this piece of foam as my cushion, like a pad. If you have an actual jelly plate, that could work really well because that's got some give, or a printing plate specific to block printing and so forth, certainly use that. But this is the setup I'm going to do, and hopefully everybody would have access to something like this. I've got my stamps here and I've got my ink here. It is quite thick, but what I'm going to first do is ink up this piece of foam here. And I'm going to, don't want to waste any of my ink, so I'll get rid of what's on this whisk first. And then I have this really simple brush here. So I'll just take some of that off of there. And I'm trying to set up an area here that will allow me to dip my blocks into it. Now, one of the blocks I have is pretty long. I'm going to use this as an edge piece, so I need to have enough to be able to fit that size. Should just about do it. Try to get as much of a even base as possible. I can always add more of the ink, and I will have to. So start off like that, and now set up to start printing. All right, let's ink up this block. So I'm just gonna press it in. Try to see if I'm getting it. Still some areas, so I'm gonna press it a few times. Try to get it as evenly covered as possible. It's nice the first time you use it because they've painted the top white, so you can kind of see that it's been evenly covered. And you might test it out on a piece of paper to make sure that you've got it evenly covered. Just take a paper towel here and see if we're getting a print. Looks pretty good. There's a few areas where it's a little too much, so I will just, now it's not enough. So we will ink it back up. That's better. All right, that gives me an idea. So I will ink it, blot it, and then print it. And as with anything, if you've never done this before, I've never done it, you're gonna wanna practice. So maybe think about using a scrap piece of fiber that you're not worried about, or not be too terribly concerned about how the design is not going to be perfect. But you can see I have a couple of different rounds here. That one was a pretty good one, actually. So I'll try to see if I can replicate that as I start to print. So my design is now done, and I need to let the paste dry completely. you'll see that it's not uniform. Part of that is the wooden stamps that I have and just, you know, trying this for the first time. But I'm really happy with it, and I think it looks cool, sort of weathered this way. And it was really fun to just play around with it. I can imagine that you can do all kinds of things, and certainly with practice I will get maybe a little bit more used to how to work with the blocks, but all in all, I am quite pleased. So we'll let this dry and move on to the next step. All right, the print is done. Now we need to fix the indigo to the textile. And to do that, we're going to make a fixative solution. And we're going to be doing that with the salt pack here. We're going to be pouring that into a container. And then we're going to be using half of the calx powder. We're going to put this into a small jar, which I have here. And then we're going to put it into 2 liters of warm water and soak our fabric for about 10 minutes, which is going to fix the indigo onto the fabric. So let's make that fixative solution. Full pack of salt into a container. And then half of the calx powder. We're gonna dissolve these two together. Okay. We're gonna save the rest of that calx for the next step, which is the reduction phase. Add a little bit of water. Pour that into a larger container that can hold another 2 liters or so of water. In goes my textile to soak in this solution for about 10 minutes. That will fix it. So here is the fiber and the fixative. And next is we're going to make the reduction in here. In order to do that, we're going to dissolve the fructose packet in 2 liters of almost boiling water. Then add the other half of the calx packet. We're going to stir occasionally and wait until the liquid turns bright yellow. And then we're going to soak the fiber in the solution for 10 minutes, stirring often. So here's the fructose. We're going to add that into this bin. Okay, so I added the calx, and look at how yellow that turned. So we'll stir that calx in and get the rest of that dissolved. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pull out this fiber from the fixative. Add it into this reduction bath. I'll spread it out. We'll let that sit for 10 minutes. So during these 10 minutes, I'm just going to stir it often, mix it around, so we get the reduction to all the parts of the fiber with the indigo print on it. Okay, we've been 10 minutes in our reduction bath, and now we need to oxidize by dunking the fabric into a final bath of cold water. I have another bin here that's filled with cold water, and I've got the textile over there in the reduction bath. So I'm just going to move that from the reduction bath into this bath and rinse it and oxidize it. So with indigo, you can oxidize in cold water or just by air in many methods. And this one's calling specifically for water to oxidize, cold water. So I'm just going to move that around a little bit. See the print. Now you can see that there's still a yellow color to the textile, and the textile was white. So there's some of it. It's looking a little white in places. So what we'll do next is we'll rinse this. But what Julie has included with this pack, and that was the final pack, is a small amount of soda ash. And if the yellow doesn't come out from the fiber, we can do a weak solution of soda ash, which should rinse off the alginate and also turn the fabric back to white if it's still a little yellow. So let's go rinse it and see if we need to use a soda ash bath to whiten it up. So we're gonna rinse it and see if the yellowish color will come out as we're doing the final rinse. And if not, we will make that weak solution of soda ash and hopefully get the yellow out that way. With the print, it looks really, really beautiful. Sharp in different places. It's definitely going to have sort of a worn look to it, which will be really, I think, very pretty. So the yellow is getting lighter, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of a soda ash bath. A little bit more of a rinse, see if I can get it a little bit brighter of a white. So I only added part of the soda ash. I still have some ink left from the indigo, so I actually don't want to use it all in case I'm going to make some more of these. Wow. That does just take that yellow right out in front of my eyes. That is amazing. Okay, so I'm actually going to let that sit here for a little bit. And look at that. That absolutely turned the fabric back to white. All right, I'm going to do one final clear water rinse, hang this to dry, and we've got ourselves an indigo block print. Exciting. So many parts of today's process were new to me and also so much fun to learn more about indigo itself and also a way to use natural colors in a completely different way beyond simply dyeing. So I am excited to be able to practice some of these new techniques in my own art practice, and I hope you will do the same. Knowing a bit about me and my non-perfectionist ways, I was very satisfied with this first attempt at using indigo for block printing, and I really loved how it turned out. I enjoyed the fact that it had a more weathered appearance to it. I still have enough paste, alkaline, fixative, and reduction bath that I can make some more of these designs for myself, so I'll be working on that this weekend. So that rounds out our section of Color Quest where we've looked at multiple natural dye kits. It really is a fantastic option to test some processes out, and it makes it super easy to have everything that you need, or most everything that you need, to create some really beautiful naturally dyed projects all in one boxed kit. So I hope you will check out the Love of Color as well as the Color Farms natural dye kits for your future projects. We will certainly come back to other kits in the future here on Color Quest, so keep an eye out for that sometime later in 2022. So next time on Color Quest, I'm going to be looking at the two different types of indigo, being fresh leaf indigo and vat indigo, and working on a shibori project comparing how these two beautiful options in the indigo world can complement each other and create distinctly unique colors using the same plant. I hope you have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you next Friday here on Color Quest. I would love it if you give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe and share the good word with anyone you know who may have a love of natural color. See you next Friday. I still have enough paste and I still have enough paste